Hey everyone, thanks for clicking back on this channel. My name is Alvy Macias, and on this channel we talk about personal finance, building generational wealth, and how to become a first-generation millionaire. In today's video topic, what I really want to talk about is going to be student loans. My personal experience with student loans, how I've been able to pay off over $12,000 in student loans to Great Lakes within 9 months of getting my bachelor's degree from the University of Oregon. If that's something that you're interested in and you can hopefully take some of these tips and tricks that I've personally used to pay down your student loans, let's hop into it. Okay, so it only seems right that I give you all the bigger picture as to my experience with student loans. So when I graduated from the University of Oregon in September of 2019, I had a total of $17,700 in student loans that I owed to Great Lakes, not the University of Oregon, but Great Lakes specifically. That was my servicer. So what I've been able to do is, like I mentioned, pay down $12,000 in student loans. And now I only have a balance of about $5,700, give or take a little bit, depending on the interest. Okay, so tip number one is to start looking at your student loans before you graduate. Ideally, you want to look at your student loans and how much you owe before you graduate. Now, a lot of people will say that you don't need to, it's not really important, and it's just going to cause you a lot more stress than what you need right now. Personally, what I did was I looked at all my accounts long before graduation was even coming up. So I was only at the U of O for 2 years, and about the second to last term before graduation, I really wanted to look into my student loans so I can get an idea of how much I owed. So a really good point with tip number one is to not be afraid of the total amount. I know that you probably have, on average, the US student is graduating with a bachelor's degree of around $33,000, $35,000. So that's pretty average. Now, if you're going off to medical school or if you're trying to become a lawyer, those are obviously going to balloon much higher than $35,000. But for the majority of students, you all are going to have about $35,000 if you go to a four-year school fresh out of high school. So along those same lines, don't take the ostrich in the sand approach, meaning that all you do is you just pretend like you don't have any student loans and you're just going to push them off until one day you'll get to them. You really need to be able to just take a whole look at how much debt you have in terms of your student loans, because that's going to basically give you the power that you need. 80% of a problem is realizing you have a problem. Student loans are a problem. So if you just pretend like they're not a part of your life, you don't own them, you don't owe those student loans, and eventually you'll pay them down, they're just going to pester in your life for until the day you die. Student loans are one of the hardest things to get rid of. So taking this approach where you bring it full circle, you bring that paperwork to your face and you see how much you owe, it's really going to help be able to say, okay, I need to form an attack plan. So tip number two is related to post-graduations, to be able to live below your means. Now, this looks like a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Personally, what it looked like for me was my girlfriend and I moved in together and we share everything 50-50. So our rent, our utilities, all of our means to live are all split 50-50. And so what that has allowed us to do is to be able to bring down our cost of living and be able to make sure that all of our income that we decide to go to our student loans goes to our student loans. So a lot of people will tell you, well, you need to get your first apartment, you need to go and live in a really big city. Yes, those things are great to try to do and achieve if you have the means for it. But typically most of y'all are going to graduate with not a ton of money. You're not going to go out and have a $55,000 income your first year out of college. If you do, awesome. Please let me know down below where you work and have that income. But most of y'all are going to be making somewhere around $37,000 to $40,000 your first year out of school. So living below your means allows you to not worry about making a ton of money because your costs are not very high. So along those same lines, you want to try to look for an inexpensive apartment. You want to try to make sure that you're not buying a brand new 2018 Mercedes, whatever, C-Class. And you really want to try to limit your amount of trips within your first, I'd say, 2 years post-graduation. What this is going to allow you to do is to be able to focus and really dial in to your student loans as much money as possible. The more you pay, the faster that total amount that you owe starts to come down. One really brief thing I want to touch on in this tip is moving back in with your parents. Personally, I didn't have the option to move back in with my parents. There was already a lot of people living with my parents, so that wasn't an option for me. But if you have that option, don't discard that and just take that off the table as saying, I'm never moving back in. If your parents allow you to move back in and you're making decent money, again, keeping your expenses low because you're probably not going to be making a ton of money, you have the ability to really take a leap forward in paying back your student loans. If your living expenses are close to nothing, meaning your rent is zero and you're making $3,000 per month, you now have a roughly $2,500 that you can put towards your student loans, assuming you only need about $500 for gas and your car insurance or something like that. But living with your parents, don't knock it. I don't necessarily personally have experience moving back in with my parents, but if you have the ability to, it's a great way to be able to catapult your student loans payment. One piece of advice I will give you on that though, make sure you don't just take that free rent or whatever money was supposed to be going to rent and just blow it on trips, brand new cars, going out with your friends every other weekend, because then you're just spending the same amount of money, but you're just spending it on different things. If you're moving back in with your parents, all that money that was supposed to be rent now goes to your student loans. Okay, so tip number 3 is going to be related to your income. Once you start making some money, what I want you to do is really try to balloon up your income as fast as possible. Now, this is going to look like a couple different things. One is going to be working a regular 9 to 5 or just your regular job. Second is going to be able to get overtime. If your company allows you to work overtime, I want you to work as many hours as possible with overtime, because that allows you more income plus more hourly if you go over 40 hours per week. You're also going to want to start looking into side hustles. So personally, what I did once I moved to Portland is I wanted to be able to have a 9 to 5 job, but also I worked as a valet at a hotel. I have some experience working in valet already from back in California. So I applied for a job here doing valet just 2 days a week, only 5 hours per shift, and they were super flexible around my 9 to 5 job. So I worked roughly 55 hours per week up until the whole pandemic thing happened. But you have the ability to work as much as possible. And if you really want to be able to pay down your student loans, you're going to need to build as much income, because that's going to give you a bigger shovel to pay down your student loans. Now, let me clarify this point. I don't mean that you need to have a $60,000 income to be able to pay down your student loans quickly. Again, like I mentioned, most of y'all, and personally in my experience, are gonna have under $45,000 per year working your first job post-college. Again, if you have something greater than that, that's awesome. I really think that's great for you. However, just because you only make $45,000, that's nothing to spit at. And also, if you have low expenses, that means that you can take a lot of that money that you're getting per month and attack those student loans. Okay, tip number 4 should come to no surprise to anyone, and that's pay more than the minimum. I know that right now, student loans are in freeze, my minimum is 0, and I don't need to pay anything right now. If you have the means and ability to, even right now, with everything going on in the economy and the pandemic that's going on, you should still be making payments to your student loans. Something that a lot of people don't know when it comes to your student loans, if you have a low monthly payment, let's say you only owe $10,000 in your student loans, and you look at your Great Lakes account and it says, hey, my payment's only $100 and somewhat per month. What all the servicers, Great Lakes, SoFi, all of them do is they take whatever balance you have, and the default setting for them is to expand it for 10 years. And the reason why they do this is because they want you to stay in debt as long as possible, because they make more money off of you, off of interest. You need to pay more than the minimum if you want to get out of student loan debt as quickly as possible. Tip number 5 is a tip that relates to your psyche and your mental state trying to pay off your student loans. It's always there's a huge mountain ahead of me. How am I ever gonna get to that point, right? When it comes to student loans, you see you owe $35,000 and you think, I'm never gonna be able to chip away at that mountain. But this is a tip for you all to stay motivated and make sure that you're on track to pay down your student loans. So what I have done is I have bought I don't even know how big it is. It's like a 10 by 10 or something whiteboard. And on that whiteboard, I've written down all the student loans that I've ever owed, and my car leases on there, everything that I owe money on. And as I've made payments, I've been able to systematically erase the number from the previous balance and then write the new balance. Okay, so I'm gonna show y'all what I was talking about when it comes to my whiteboard. So take a look. So as y'all can see here, there's pretty much a few different things that I always try to keep track of, but this right here is the most important. So as you can see, total debts, student loans, and car lease. So this is total what I owe against my name. And this number right here specifically is the one that every time I make a payment, I will erase this and then put the new total on what I owe. So this is really the motivation that keeps me going, because I see this number go down, I see this number go down, and then I see my total debt go down. So that's what I always try to do, and I highly recommend y'all have some kind of system in place that's similar to this. It can be in your phone, on the whiteboard, similar to this situation, or a pen and paper also really works. But just have something where you can see the progress you're making every month, every day, and keep it somewhere visible. What this has done is really two things. One is keep me motivated. I just love seeing that number go down every single month when I make a payment. And two, it helps keep me accountable. It really emphasizes in my brain, hey, I need to make a payment this month. Have I made my payment this month? And it really just helps motivate me to stay on track, even though I don't need to make a payment, especially with everything going on right now in the world, but I still make payments, again, because it's that closer and closer to the bottom than I was when I first started. Tip number 6 is last, but certainly not least. So tip number 6 relates to paying off your debt a priority. So you need to think, I want to get out of debt as soon as possible. These student loans are killing me. $300+ every month. I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. So at some point in your life, and I'm looking at you, class of 2020, when you get those statements in the mail, you need to say, I'm going to get rid of this stuff as quickly as possible. Otherwise, it will linger. You're going to have debt for 10+ years. And don't you dare talk to me about refinancing, because you can get an extra $300 off your student loan. What I want you to do is say, this is my priority. I'm not going to travel for 1 year. I'm not going to go out with friends for 6 months. I'm going to work 60 hours a week. I'm going to try to get a side hustle doing ballet, doing YouTube, or doing anything that makes me money to be able to pay off these student loans. When that flip in your brain goes off and you say, that's it, I've had it, you will be amazed at the amount of opportunity that comes your way. You just need to be able to tell yourself, this is what I'm going to do to be able to get rid of my student loans, and just watch what the universe puts in front of you. So those are my tips and how I was able to pay off over $12,000 in student loans within 1 year of graduating. Now, I'm not completely out of my student loans yet. I want to be completely transparent and make sure that's clear. However, I have been able to pay down a lot more than most people have, and I just want to share my knowledge and what has helped me get to this point. By the end of this year, I'm going to be completely out of my student loans. So when that happens, I will make sure to report that and let you all know, to be able to encourage people on their path. Let me know down in the comments if you're worried about your student loans or how much you owe in student loans, so that way we can build a community that's transparent and you get the support that you need. Thank you so much for watching this video. Remember to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. That way I can continue to serve you all. I really hope this video brought you some value, and remember, this journey of being able to be a first-generation millionaire and breaking the cycle of poverty starts with us. Thank you. Have a great day.